Vajiro was born in Malaysia in 1953 and has been a Buddhist monk for over 40 years. In 1979, he met Luang Por Chah and Luang Por Sumedho when they made a visit to Hampstead Vihara in Oakenholt, England. He received higher ordination from Ajahn Chah personally in Thailand in 1980 at Wat Nong Papong. After helping with the opening of Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in the UK, he participated in the running of both Harnham Buddhist Monastery and Chethurst Forest Monastery. In 1993, he moved to New Zealand to lead the Bodhinyana Rama community in Wellington for 5 years. Following this, he entered a 3-year retreat in Australia before returning to Amaravati in 2001. In 2012, he moved to Portugal to establish Sumedho Rama Monastery near Lisbon, where he is now based and serving as the abbot. So, Lumpur, that's a long history of Buddhist practice and Buddhist engagement with the Dhamma. We'll probably circle back around to some of the details of that. But what is your practice now, and what do you teach? What is the thrust of your Dhamma engagement and teaching? Big question.
I try to offer suggestions and see how people respond. I'm not incredibly sure that I really teach. I feel that that people learn what they want to learn, and then they call where they learn from. If they're people, they call them teachers. So, in some ways, you can't. Secondary school teachers have told me that you can't really teach anybody anything. It has to be the person wishes to learn, and then if you wish to learn, well, I find if I wish to learn something, then I'll figure out somehow of doing it. And if it's from another person, that's great, because that's a little bit cleverer than just learning from my own mistakes, which is a bit cleverer than never learning from my mistakes, which is a bit cleverer still from never admitting that I ever make mistakes. So those are the sort of stages of ways that one can learn. So I don't feel that I teach so much as try to offer opportunities for beings to train themselves, because humans can do that.
It's interesting how much can be conveyed just by sitting with someone, even over Zoom. I mean, we started only recording just a minute or two ago, but we're speaking for a while before that. And someone's gravitas can really be conveyed. And we're doing this Majjhima Nikaya deep inquiry, and there's this stock phrase talking about the bulls, the elders of the Sangha, and respecting the elders of the Sangha. And I see the beauty in that myself. It really does. I mean, it's a palpable effect, just being around senior teachers, even in this medium of Zoom or across continents. But I'd be curious if you could maybe talk about your own influence from the bulls of the Sangha, your relationship with Ajahn Chah, Luang Por Sumedho, how that affected you. Yeah.
I came through to Buddhism via I knew about it because I was born in Malaysia, so it's not something that was strange to me. But then, spiritual practice, I'm in a spiritual school, and that my grandfather went to, that my father went to, and then trying to figure out at university what to do, and not really trusting the things that I came across, and then getting a job in London, and because that's what you did in those days. And I only had one interview for a job. It was much easier in those days. And then when somebody who I'd known at university suggested I go on a 10-day meditation retreat, I didn't know what I was doing. But I trusted it because it was not something that was being paid for, and it was actually led by somebody who was ex-CIA and a very, very reluctant teacher. And his teacher was an accountant. So, and I was training as an accountant. And this is 1975. And as part of that, I heard about forest monks. But John Coleman, who was the teacher at that time, was very supportive. And then so I heard that there were forest monks, and I was in London, and this was 1977 when I first went up to see what was happening in Hampstead. And it was what impressed me was how the community related among themselves. That was what impressed me. The teachings, yes, I was grateful. Luang Chah was teaching, and then I moved next door to the community, and then in 77, and then in 78 I left the job to join the community, thinking I would just be around for 2 or 3 years and helping which way I could. And again, it was the way that the community related to each other. In 79, I was part of the community, and that's when my father went to see Luang Chah. And it was interesting to see how that meeting took place. And I wasn't sure that I would be able to continue because my father was pretty adamant that he didn't trust Buddhism at all. Again, he'd come across it a lot in the East, so he'd come across all sorts of things. So, but anyway, I did continue, and I eventually got to Wat Pong, Wat Pong. And I think that the way that the people behaved around Luang Chah and the kindness that he showed was what impressed me. There weren't so many, as you say, elders in the community. I mean, Ajahn Sumedho was what, 10 vases, 11 vases? So it's when you think of those sorts of ages, and his, when I was with him in Hampstead and it was his confidence in the Dhamma, his confidence in his own practice, and also his humility. He never puffed himself up. And that was something that I found very helpful. But what impressed me was the way that the Vinaya and the Korwat, as they say, the way that people behaved around. That's what helped. And then, so yeah, the sort of elders of the Sangha weren't around then, and I didn't really understand Thai or anything, so it wasn't something that I was really clued into. Does that help a bit?
It does. And actually, I didn't realize that you were originally a student of John Coleman. I'm reading a book called Insight in Perspective, a new book that just came out exploring the Goenka, Sayama, that whole tradition. And I'm curious about that, like how coming from that tradition and coming into this one, I mean, they're different in certain ways, but curious. Yeah. Would love to hear your perspective. Like, are they different? How are they different? And what was it? You mentioned the community.
John was such a reluctant teacher. He wasn't a diehard vipassana. And so his attitude to Luang Por Chah and the monastics was always incredibly supportive, and his attitude towards me was incredibly supportive. And he wasn't dogmatic. One of these old sort of Zen stories about, you go to the teacher and you get a chance to speak once a year. So I sat my first meditation retreat in 75, a 10-day retreat, fortnight holiday. So it took up a huge chunk. And then at the end of it, they say, you have to do this, you have to do 20 minutes of this, and then 40 minutes of sweeping, morning and evening. So, and you get a 10-minute interview. So the first meditation retreat, what I think I really learned was that you can't trust your thoughts. That was what I think was what was very viscerally felt for me. And then the second meditation retreat, of course, you go with a lot of anticipation about blowing your mind, but it's not. So you get a 10-minute talk at the end, and I said, well, I can't do this. 20 minutes of this and 40 minutes of this. And John Coleman's attitude was very much, don't worry, don't make a problem about it. Go with, be with how you are when you're walking. Be with how you are when you sit at your desk and you come to hold your pen. This was before computers, remember? It was, be with how it is. So I never felt that he was hard line. And of course, U Ba Khin's teacher was Lady Sayadaw. So, what Goenka got out of it. And I feel that John was actually quite reluctant to teach. He said in his talks that I didn't want to teach, I was told to teach. So it was something he then enjoyed doing. And then, through the time, he was always supportive of the monastics. He gave the cat to the nuns. Before I came to Portugal, he was dying of cancer, and he went and asked somebody to go and get his Buddha Rupa from the hut around the back where he used to sit. And I took the Buddha Rupa here, so it's on the shrine here. That's his Buddha Rupa that was given to him by one of the security officials from the palace. So that was. So I don't find any real conflict with him, with John. Goenka and the Mother Sayama and all of that are a little bit more complex, and I really don't want to go into that in too much detail now. But it provides something, and I feel that in some ways it's useful what it provides, but I have reservations about how it's continuing and about the skill of the people who are carrying the thing forward.
Luang Por, speaking about these different techniques or traditions in meditation circles, I feel like you've spent your life touching into and being tapped into a much, this deep strata of a life lived outside of worldly values. You've been a monk for many, many years. And, that is something that is apparent just speaking. And I know one of your favorite phrases, I believe, is what happiness to find there's no joy in the world, or what joy to find there's no happiness in the world.
That's Ajahn Buddhadasa, that's not me.
But is it, I've heard this is a phrase that you especially delight in, or...
That's a phrase that I think was used, or translated from something that Ajahn Buddhadasa put together, and that is the reflection, as you say, on the 8 worldly whims, no longer living according to worldly aims and values. It was one of the first, those 10 reflections for one who's gone forth, which is really for all of us who feel, what am I doing with this life? And I don't want to lead this life. I don't want to the end of this life. When questioned by my spiritual companions, what the heck have I done?
It's a good translation.
Or, which is what all of us actually feel at a very early age, I think, if we come to this. Or at some point, if we have the luxury to be able to do this, we want to feel, I don't want to waste this life.
Mm.
If we're not struggling to just survive, then that's the big sort of existential question. What the heck am I doing here? What does this birth really mean?
So as someone who's lived their life trying, living in line with the answer to that question, or trying to
hold that question,
to hold it, how, and as someone who's trying to duck under those worldly winds, however successfully we do it, what have you found the most sustaining element in, either in your own ability to remain as a monk for these many, many decades, and in the monks you've trained with and lived with? What do you find is the real salient feature in a practitioner remaining able to live with a joy outside of the happiness of the world?
Well, I remember, I think when some years ago, do you know Ajahn Karunadamo?
Yeah.
I think I hadn't really thought about this when I think he was driving me to the airport or something, and it's Nanagarika, and it came spontaneously, and it's what I've reflected upon a lot since. And it's gratitude. And gratitude, Katanya Katavedi, is what has sustained. I mean, to the people who support me on a daily basis, that sense of, when you're on Bindabat, food that goes in your bowl, to the teachers who've bothered to look after me, and to those that have supported the teachers, going back through the generations, it's gratitude that has, I feel, supported the Buddha Sasana. Gratitude to the Lord Buddha and those that supported the Lord Buddha, and the and the gratitude to the teaching that he offered, and then those that realized the teaching and those that supported them. And that, because it's all been offered. There's been no demand placed on anybody. There's nobody insisting that you do this. There's no compulsion here. It's something that is I think a result of appreciation. I think one of the sides of gratitude, I feel, is mudita, is joy at goodness, and wanting to support that. So that's how I feel that consciousness, that awareness works, because the result of mudita, if there's no further insight, is the infinite consciousness, which is a sense of presence, appreciating what this moment has.
And I know in one of your teachings you've talked about how that sense of all those people from the Lord Buddha onto our teachers, all of them have been wishing us happiness since time immemorial.
That's part of it. How many people have said "Sabe Sata Sukhi Honto"? How many people are saying that now? How many times have you said that in previous lifetimes? May all beings born and to be born. It's some. If ignorance is not knowing something and not knowing that you don't know it, because that's what ignorance is, isn't it? It's not knowing what you don't know, and not knowing that beings wish you well. It's a shame. Beings have wished you well. The Lord Buddha has wished you well. All the disciples have wished you well. All your teachers would really wish that you be completely free from all ignorance. And of course, you would actually wish that of everybody else, as you know, because it would make your life easier.
John, one of the lines in your book, allowing intuition, revelation, and insight, that I really appreciate was be grateful for gratitude. And, the Pali word, as you mentioned, is katanyu, anyu, knowing, kata, that which has been done. So it all comes together. And Ajahn Gambhiro, our friend, was telling us that this is a really important part of the practice at Sumedho Rama, is that you always wanted there to be an alms round as part of the foundation of the monastery. And we do that, being impressed by monastics who hold that, monasteries that do that as a practice. That's what our food is, alms round, every weekday. And it's impressive. And how do you, is there any way for lay people to feel that? I feel so fortunate. Like, we don't have any other response than gratitude, really, based on how we're eating every day. But
how can lay people feel gratitude? Is that what you're asking?
In a way similar to our foundation, like everything we eat, whereas a lay person, they're buying their own food and.
Yeah. I mean, it's, kindness, appreciating kindness, appreciating that one's life depends upon kindness. Is the way that it's being thought about a little bit now. That's not just my idea. It's like reflecting on that human society depends upon kindness. It doesn't. If there's no kindness, human society breaks down. We assume most of the people we meet in the moment that they're keeping the 5 precepts. No. If they're not, if we don't assume that, we're in a state of war. We're in a state of civil unrest, or that's when it starts to get dangerous. But we also ignore the fact that that's what we assume. You don't think when you're walking up and you're getting something from a shot that actually he's probably going to be trying to be honest and she's going to help me, and ignoring that ignores the goodness that is actually present. And then we can get stressed about, maybe they are trying to get me. I don't know. For the most part, most people wish beings well. And we actually wish people well. We would actually wish that everybody we meet was enlightened, because it would make our life easier. We are selfish bodhisattvas, really.
Lumpur, so speaking about how to take this practice of gratitude and bring it to a lay practitioner's life, just in terms of this deeper alignment you found and guided your life with, of meaning and really trying to live a life of genuine, deep worth in the Dhammic sense, what thoughts would you have for a layperson struggling, who intuits that depth and power of Dhamma, but has a job, children, just can't, really struggling to align their lives with Dhamma like they would hope to, but having trouble considering the number of duties they have?
I don't know. Not a layperson. It's really something that lay people need to answer for themselves. They have to figure out themselves. I feel, what we can always look to is the Eightfold Path. So, that's, something to be practiced. It's, that's the Four Noble Truths. That's what gives life value and makes it worthwhile, is the practice of the Eightfold Path. So getting one's relationship right to the Dhamma, so understanding dukkha, abandoning the cause, realizing cessation, and practicing the path. I can't offer anything more specific than that. I do, and the practice of the Eightfold Path at its simplest was that Lumpur Dun's thing of jit hen jit, yeah. And that sense of that, what is the citta? And I don't know, but it's the way that I sometimes talk about it is that the way that how things are received, because every life is given, So that's a given, is life. So that's what we have is given. We haven't had to pay for it. What we receive, this sense experience that we receive is just this. And then how do we respond to it? So, and that's jit hen jit, is knowing how that, which is life, which is receiving and giving and responding. Yeah, that's what. Are we responding from a sense of inadequacy, thinking we need to get something or we need to get rid of something, or are we able to give? Because what's given is given when life is given, and then are we able to give back? Is that, and that's jit hen jit. How are we receiving things? Are we receiving them openly, or are we trying to manipulate? And how are we responding? Are we letting go? Are we coming from a sense of sufficiency and release? Because generosity is about feeling sufficient and releasing. And you can't do it unless there's a sense of sufficiency. I have enough, and I can go, and then I can let go. That's what generosity is, isn't it? No? No, it's not bargaining, it's releasing. And that's, doing what we can in that context. And one of the things is when we expect people to make us happy, where that make other people responsible for our happiness. That's a sadness, isn't it? Do this and then I'll be happy. Not really fair, So one of the ways that one family has, when I talked about parents are not responsible for their children's happiness, and children are not responsible for their parents' happiness, because we tend to feel that that's what I suggest is, can we allow beings to suffer less now and in the future? We make that's about as much as we can. I feel that I can do. I feel that the Buddha didn't try to make us happy. He allowed us to suffer less, gave us tools to suffer less now and in the future. And he did that because that's what compassion is. He gave us the way of considering things, the tools to think about, because thoughts are tools. And he gave us a way of behavior, which is a vinaya, things to do and ways to think. And he gave us very clear things for that, for both, for everybody. It's not just for bhikkhus. The vinaya isn't just for there's a vinaya for lay people as well. There's a way of proper behavior that causes less suffering now and in the future. Because we're into causality, are we not? If the causes and conditions of things, the causes and conditions are not there, they won't be there.
John, this thought tool, the Lumpur Dun teaching of jit hin jit, the mind, the chitta, seeing the mind. It's a beautiful teaching. I love it. And it's something which I think a lot of people find difficult to do. In that verb, I mean, there are ways of just in my own, trying to practice with this, of actually using the visual sense in a certain way to kind of turn the light around is another phrase. But curious if you have...
People have different ways of different dominance. Some are more sight, and some are more audio, and some are more visceral. So, hen is actually just, I feel it's more the knowing. Yeah, and then the knowing doesn't need to be confined to a sense. It's knowing the knowing. We know that we're sitting here, or we know that we're experiencing something. Well, what knows that? And then the mind goes a bit, for me, it just goes a bit, there's a spaciousness there.
Just asking the question.
Just asking the questions open up the spaciousness of what's not thinking. Because there's the experience of something, And then, so there's that level of knowing. You know that you're sitting here, but that's telling a story. Yeah, and that story is all about our cultural conditioning, and that's the Sakkaya Ditthi, isn't it? But what knows that? That's not caught in it, and it's not something that thought stops there.
Long for this kind of idea of remaining grounded in an awareness which is consonant with gratitude and spaciousness and humility, I find powerful. And I also find, in the midst of creating a monastery or trying to create something that might someday be one, we're very involved in, we're interacting with the world a great deal. And as someone who's watched different monasteries grow up and seen the trajectories of various monastic lives, what kind of concrete advice would you give us for how we can remain humble, grounded, and good bhikkhus in the midst of what we're doing? What have you found helpful for you? I think Ajahn Jayasaro told us to think of ourselves as articulate earthworms.
I haven't really done very much. It's very much. I haven't come with any great plans. I'm much more. No, I set a direction more. I feel what and. So, Chithurst, I really just didn't know what I was doing. No, I was there. Just what can I do from day to day? I was, how can I help from day to day? And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I don't think most of the time most of us do know what we're doing and what causes and conditions we're setting in effect. Got to Nana Chat, and it was the third abbot there, Ajahn Jagro. And it was his first year. And Ajahn Brahmavamsa was there, but he was only 4 vasas. Theravada was, I think, 5. And Munindo and Moto and people. And it was just like, how do we just work from day to day? Much more immediate. I wasn't trying to do anything about it. Then Amaravati, I came back to England in 1984, and Ajahn Sumedho took me on a walk to Bindabat somewhere, and he said, I want you to come to Amaravati and help with that. And so that's what I did. I didn't really think about. I thought, well, Amaravati is an extension of Chithurst. It's a sub-branch of Chithurst. It's being set up for the nuns and for the lay people. The monks are only going to be there some of the time. They're just not going to be resident all the time. This was what I thought was the idea of Amaravati. That's how it was presented, and then I didn't stay there long, and then I came back to Chithurst. And I really loved Chithurst, but then I didn't set up when I got to New Zealand, because Ajahn Birodamo wanted to come back and help Ajahn Sumedho. He suggested that I should spread my wings and go to New Zealand. And that was what it was. I learned a lot about not wanting to be an abbot. So when I got... so then I put myself off the map and started with Ajahn Ian Ariesiko, tiny hermitage in Melbourne, in the Dandenongs, where I think which is still going. Ajahn Hasapanya's place now. And then Ajahn Sumedho invited me back to Amaravati, and I kept saying that, this is fine. And then in 2006, they started to take under the Portuguese thing. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. 2010, I just helped with the legal stuff and said I didn't want to come here. And then 2010, they said, Ajahn Sumedho's retiring, please look after it. So I said, well, I can't do that without coming here. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was clear that somewhere where bhikkhus can train in Portugal, that's as far as I got. It was somewhere where people can train as bhikkhus in Portugal. I wasn't trying to set up anything else. And I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. And I'm really surprised what has happened. But it wasn't, and I only intended to stay for 2 years, because then I thought, well, it needs to go to the Portuguese. So it wasn't my plan. I didn't come with a big plan. And it was more like, well, what can I offer to help? You know, it made sense. And I wasn't trying to set up a monastery. You know, but when we built it, like, things came, and the builders came and we had the opening ceremony, I thought, what have we done here? And this is, again, it just occurred to me, I thought, what we built here is a generator of generosity, because the monks don't get paid, so they are offering themselves, and then people offer that, so it generates generosity. The monks try to behave themselves, and we try to encourage other people to behave themselves. We generate virtue, dana, sila, and because we're Buddhists, we also try to generate wisdom and cultivate that. So, how do we lead a life? So I said, well, what you've built, you builders, is a generator of alternative energy. So, but I hadn't really thought of that until the afternoon. So, but it wasn't. I wasn't coming with that strong intention to do something. I wasn't, or get something, or become something, or set something up. It was more like, what can I do now? And then within the constraints of whatever the whole thing is.
Well, boy, one of the through lines, a really beautiful through line of that story, is spiritual friendship, is Kalyāṇa Mittā. And you ordained with 3 other monastics, at least 3 other monastics who are still in robes. That's a very rare thing in our Thai tradition. Not everyone might know, but pretty much we're not expected to keep lifetime vows. So pretty much as we stay in robes, all of our friends slowly start dropping off, and we get fewer and fewer friends of the same years over the years in general. But for yourself, you ordained the same day, the same time as Ajahn Jayasaro, Ajahn Ñāṇadhammo, Ajahn Khemanando. And
did it get the order right? Ñāṇadhammo, Jayasaro, myself, Khemanando.
Thank you. But would love to hear, like, what does spiritual friendship, Kalyāṇa Mittā, what does that look like as it matures among people who are really taking it seriously
Not taking Kalyāṇa Mittā seriously. Not taking each other seriously, thank you.
Okay.
Definitely not taking each other seriously. But always treating each other kindly. Always looking with kindly eyes. And I haven't had a lot of time with them. They've had a lot more time among themselves than I have. But always looking with very kindly eyes and very, very touched by them. It's and Ajahn Pasano from way back, Sumedho from way back, Ajahn V, Ajahn Sujito from when he first turned up in 78 from Chiang Mai or wherever he turned up from. These people I've known for some time now, and I'm just very grateful to them and for them. They are really good examples and friends. If I got upset about all the people who disrobed, then I'd be silly, because they've been heaps. And the first Anagarika that inspired me, that when I went to Thailand to try to find him, because he'd been a bhikkhu, he'd already disrobed. I was expecting to see him, and already gone. And through all the rest. So,
Well, Luang, in terms of one of the first Kalyāṇa Mittā you encountered in this journey, do you have any kind of stories of your first moment of gaining a great faith in Luang Chah, or any kind of vignettes that have stuck with you through these years since encountering him?
I think just the kindness and the wisdom. I don't. The story that's in the book is the one about teaching me to dry a bowl.
Could you speak to that
bowl? That's in the Stillness Flowing book. Because I was a keen anagarika, and so I went to help to dry his bowl, and so Luang saw what I was doing and thought that this wasn't proper, so he showed me how to dry a bowl and got Ajahn Prabhakaro to translate, and Luang Sumedho was there. And the phrase that he used is, I'll teach you how to dry a bowl, Luang Sumedho here will teach you how to go to Nibbana. And that's actually quite a powerful statement if you really consider it, because it's got a lot going on there. So it's teaching for me, for Luang Sumedho, and for it's the practical thing of teaching how to do a bowl. So it was a good one. That's the one that is the one that's in the public domain. So yeah.
Are there any others that aren't in the public domain? Yeah. No.
And yeah, it was a good thing.
Well, in addition to getting better at the practicalities of living a holy life, or just living a life, we get better at those, hopefully, if we're paying attention over time. In your book, you mentioned that one test of one's spiritual progress is just how are you with yourself, and how are you with others? And it's a very interesting metric, and I'm curious if you could talk about that. How does one judge one's spiritual progress? In certain meditation traditions, it's easy. Can you meditate for 3 hours a day, 3 times, whatever, very metric based. But
is your life a blessing or a curse? Is your what does a blessing mean to you? A blessing to me is leaving something or encouraging something to be less of a problem for oneself and others. A street sweeper blesses the street as they sweep the streets. They leave it in a better condition than they find it. Mm-hmm. Is your life a blessing or a curse in each moment? A curse is when it actually causes more problems for other people and for yourself. Now, maybe they're strong words, but I feel blessed, and I try to offer blessings in terms of what I do, like keep things tidy, look after things. That's in a very simple way, and then with people, what does, because it's not just with yourself and with others. That's an important part. It's the human part, but it's with everything. Is your life a blessing? Are you relating to your life that is bringing blessings, or is it a curse? Because, at the end of your life, how are your spiritual companions? Do you delight in solitude or not? Is the what supports that? That's the next one down, isn't it? In the 10 reflections. And the solitude is, freedom from the hindrances and the freedom of being present in this moment. So, if you work back through those 10 reflections, you've actually got a really good guideline of what to do. Now those are, and it is for all of us. It's not just for bhikkhus, but it's for anybody who's interested at the end of their life not to feel they've wasted their time. And that's actually, we take our lives personally, but it's actually each moment. Because the birth and the death is now. That gives you a bit of a scary thought, doesn't it?
Long for to bring this metric of leaving things in better shape than you found them. We were told to ask you about sand dunes that caught on fire, and relating this specifically to the Adita Pariyaya Sutta, the fire sermon. So is there a story there?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure whether it's just my story, but it was at the time of Chernobyl, by the by, and I was walking, and then we set up camp on dunes with somebody who was a warden for dunes. His job was looking after dunes, and we lit a fire, and it got out of hand, and so it started to spread, and so the warden went to a public telephone because there weren't mobile phones in those days, and I tried to get all our equipment away from the dunes and onto the beach proper so that it wouldn't get burnt. And then we waited for the people who deal with fires to turn up, and they turned up with very simple things: a stick with a piece of rubber on it, about 50 centimeters, maybe by 25 centimeters, a stick, and they would watch the tussocks of dune grass burn up, and they just leave it. And then when it started to try to spread to a next one, they'd get their little tools, and they'd just pop, 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 and put the fire sparks out. And I think that's, in terms of, the eye is burning, and this was the senses are burning, the mind is burning. The sermon is such an efficient sermon, 1,000 arahants at the end of it, that it must have some value. So what's it about? And it's when seeing the fire, one doesn't try to put it out. One just stops it from spreading. Just when it starts to go to something else, the fire of greed, the fire of hatred, the fire of delusion, then just knocking that on the head, sort of just popping it out then. Because you've probably noticed, or I've noticed, how we recreate our habits, and they find something more. If we've had a habit of doing this, well, and that is satisfied, then that habit of wanting to find something else, and that's the fire that just, if you can just stop it from getting to the next thing, then it'll burn out. And when the fuel's gone, what happens to the fire?
Thank you, Luang.
Does that help or give you something to consider? Stop the fire from spreading, rather than attack the fire dead on. Because if they'd attacked the fire with the thing, they'd have just spread the sparks everywhere. Yeah,
sounds like a fun tool as well.
They're very common. It's just a piece of stick with a.
Lumpur, you mentioned chanting. Chanting the fire sermon. I've heard that you love the 28 Buddhas chant, which I also have loved in the past, and I haven't chanted it for a while, but I'm curious if you could talk about this chanting as a practice. It's something which a lot of people don't like, but it's also something which other people really love. And what role has chanting served in your life, in your practice, and how do you encourage others in it if they're so inclined?
I don't feel it does have a great deal in my life, but
really?
I do it. I think one of the things is we make a lot of anapanasati. And, if you are chanting, then certainly there's an opportunity for anapanasati. And with chanting with people, you've got a whole listening, because the most important thing about chanting is not your voice, it's how you listen. It's not actually, trying to get the sound right, it's how you listen. That's the attunement that is necessary. If you just try to chant, you're going to make a mess of it, sorry. It's got to be how you listen to how everybody else is chanting. And so that's that part of it. That's the mechanical part of it. In terms of the Dhamma part of it also, it's really, really helpful to know what you're chanting. And I feel that, when I heard that Luang Chah's, one of his favorite chants was the Vipassana Bhumi. Now that is an extremely profound chant. No, it's not, and it's just a list. Come on. And I'm pretty sure, that what we have in terms of the chants is not what was done. I don't feel that the Lord Buddha, to the first 5 disciples, just did the 40 minutes of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or the 25 minutes of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. I think he taught, because he kept teaching the Four Noble Truths for the rest of his life. So it was much more of an extended, that was the bare bones. As you hear other beings teach on the Four Noble Truths, it's a whole thing on top of it, but the actual content is great. And with Luang Sumedho, one time up in Harlem, taking people away, he said, "What do arahants know?"
Say that again?
What do arahants know? And the relationship of the, dukkha, it is to be understood, it has been understood. Cause is to be abandoned, has to be abandoned. Ending is to be realized, has been ended. Path is to be practiced, has been practiced. Those are the 12 things that arahants know. And it's just a really good basis.
So I think it's actually in your book or in one of your talks, you say that one might hold this, I think this is actually when you were speaking to the Theosophical Society. So you said someone might hold the idea that everybody finds their own truth, which is, a very common thing in the West, almost like a default belief. And then your next word was no, full stop. Could you say more?
Well, because everybody finds their own opinion. If you've got our definition of truth, or the working hypothesis for truth, Sanditi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo, well revealed by wisdom. Sanditiko Akariko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatam Viditabo. You've got that. And if that's the definition of truth that actually leads to less suffering now and in the future, because those ideas of truth are just ideas, and ideas are just tools, like a screwdriver. Okay? So if your ideas lead to if you can use your ideas in ways that lead to less suffering, these are aspects of these are ideas that you can use so that there's less suffering. It's revealed by wisdom, it's apparent here and now, it's outside of time, it's attractive or encouraging investigation, it leads to a sense of peace, and it's realizable each wise person for themselves, then that's a hopeful set of tools for a definition of truth. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel. Because it's like, and the result of that is more it's a sense of sufficiency and release. Yeah? It's a sense of generosity in that definition. Okay, each person can realize it for themselves, pachatang. Yeah? But it's not, and so it's not something that can be imposed or anything like that. It's just the way it is. You know, it's it's that much, and that's the so you know to say that everybody finds, you can say that everybody can realize the truth, and everybody has their own truth. But Ajahn Sumedho has just given a talk about what's truth. Yeah, just a few hours ago, it's just been going on online. It's not. So it's worth considering what that word means and what the idea of truth is. You know, because again, it's an idea, it's a tool, it's a screwdriver, it's a lever. The ideas are just that much. They're not absolute. And how do you use these so that they reduce suffering rather than increase suffering? How do you use it? That's in accordance with, I feel, what humans can really do, because they are happiness creators if they really work well. Again, that's Ajahn Buddhadasa. If they really work well, they're happiness creators. That's what they can really do well.
Luang, the analogy of a screwdriver and the tools which allow you to access truth, though the truth accessed is, you know, the same, timeless, a calico, the roots to that truth, or rather what particular way might allow, say, a monastic to stay in robes long enough to really begin intuiting that truth, are varied. And I've heard one other elder in the Sangha speak about kind of the difficulty at the beginning of the Western Sangha in having a bit of a monoculture, in just kind of there's one narrative for how you live this life, and that people really had to figure out how to accommodate and allow to flourish a variety of personalities for longevity in robes. What lessons do you feel the Sangha has learned in terms of accommodating or supporting a wide variety of personalities through robes over many years? Are there any kind of insights into how that variegated group can, including us, can make it in these robes for a long period, for our whole lives?
What I found helpful in relating to in community for myself, make my life, because I'm into less suffering for myself, right? is not conflicting, but appreciating what people can offer. That, again, moving towards more appreciation and mudita, seeing what people can offer and wishing to support that, and not trying to make them different to fit into something that they can't fit into, and not trying to make me fit into something that I can't fit into. Also, because this one also needs that support. I can't do things that other monastics can do. And I've said repeatedly about monasteries is that every monastery is different and every monastery changes, because that's the way that all people are, actually. Things, it's called anicca. It's built in, and it's inherent in separation. That's the nature of separation, is there's going to be this dukkha, and then not to make more dukkha out of things that are dukkha. But what I can offer is what I can offer. And I offer it. So I know what I'm clearer from upekkha about what I can't offer. And that's an acceptance of limitation. That upekkha is an acceptance of limitation. I can't do that. And if I try to do that, I'll be picking up much more than I can. And I just mess it up. So that's helpful for me. So not to feel inadequate, but to recognize that's the limitation, that's all I can deal with. And then in the end, all I can really deal with is this moment.
Boy, that seems like a good way or note to land on and end on. We are so grateful for you actually taking the time and your presence, energy, your guidance, and just being willing to speak with us.
I wish you well, and all those best wishes in what you offer to the universe and to the universe that you live in, that you may realize.
Thank you.